So tonight is our technology information night, and it's good to have Dr. Corey Gilbert here with us from Corbin University. Appreciate that. He's going to kind of guide us through this process and hopefully give us some great information that will help you as a parent as you try to navigate technology with your children. So before we bring him up, I'd like to begin with a word of prayer, and then we'll get going. Heavenly Father, just once again, Lord, we thank you for Western. Thank you, Lord, for our students and our faculty and our parents. God, for this collaboration that you brought here to work together to build the next generation. God, I just pray for our meeting tonight. I pray for Corey as he comes forward and not only gives us information, Lord, but helps us to think deeper about this subject. And we just, Lord, ask for your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen. So if you'd help me welcome Dr. Corey Gilbert.
Welcome. So I've got some options. I could spend the next, we have what, 3 hours is it tonight? That's what I was told. 3 hours, the next 3 hours, next hour and a half, talking about technology, and I can talk at you or we can talk together. We're all in different places and we're all struggling with different things. And so to me the biggest thing here is how can I help you when it comes to an area that we actually struggle with a lot, technology. To me this is actually us. We are full of it. We're a mess when it comes to the amount of content coming at us. And so there's one thing I want to spend a little time on, or two focuses, but one specifically is, when do we ever get an escape from this? This is going to start first with us, but then it trickles down to our kids. What are we doing with them? How are we helping them be free? Because actually the research is showing right now that kids are actually screaming for some boundaries around some of this stuff. Even though at the same time they're saying, don't you tell me what to do. Don't you dare put a boundary. I've got 3 experiments. Those are back. Yeah, Alex, Blaze, and Wiley. I call them experiments because that's exactly what they are. All of you were experiments, and maybe the jury's still out as to how you turned out. I was an experiment, and yeah, it can be a mess. I have a sister right now who just flew from Texas to California to enter a rehab, and they rejected her. Sent her to the ER because she's dying. She's not going to make it. And I have Crohn's. She has Crohn's, it's killing her. But eating disorder on top of that, and drug addictions, it's just a mess. And it breaks our heart. We don't want that for our children. I can't imagine what my parents feel right now because they haven't been able to access and love our even because she's rejecting everything. And so if you think of even the goal of raising our kids, it isn't this. We would never actually wish that for our kids, yet this is what I would say is happening in their minds and even in their hearts. It's so full of clutter. So there's actually a lot of techniques and approaches out there to declutter technology. And what we actually found is if you take different Facebook fasts and things like that, what do we do at the end of those? We can't wait to get right back on, and we just go right back to where we left off, if not worse. And so being able to find what is that balance? Or, and actually it'd be a better question, what if you could maybe stop some things, but it's like this. How many of you have cleaned out your garage little by little? How many of you have emptied your garage and only what goes back in? I'm only putting back in there what goes in there. Everything else is, you have to earn your way back in. That's what it kind of needs to be. Now, I love technology. I can't even tell you how many screens I have in my house. I think my office alone has 7 or 8. Different setups for different things that I do, and my kids just laugh at Dad's talking about technology and look at his office. And we have screens everywhere and throughout the house, and we love Xbox, and we love, so I use social media like crazy. So it's not about absence of. I'm a homeschool dad, by the way, and I do a lot of work with homeschool families, and my goodness, the amount of families that homeschool their kids and have overprotected them. And so they're 17, 18, 19, and they're not launching well. And one of the biggest areas they're crashing and burning in is it's nothing, 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 so what's next? It's all. Gilbert was a missionary kid in Chile, came to America my senior year of high school, started college, and we had two problem groups in college, the football players and the missionary kids. And it's usually also known as the pastor's kids. Because they're like, freedom! So if you think of launching our kids, we want some boundaries around what they're doing or what they're exposed to, if you will. To kind of declutter is really important. This is actually what's happening. Like, this is our reality, right? Probably almost every one of us that has kids that has access to an iPhone or some kind of smartphone, this is the reality. And what's missing from that? Face-to-face interaction. The thing is the brain kind of doesn't quite know the difference. If I hit like on something, dopamine hit. Ooh, if someone liked mine, it's even better. If my Snapchat hits a certain number, it's amazing what's changed. Because I'm not that old, but when I started college, I had the big large floppies, and there was no email address. And it's like, wow, things are changing fast. And I was talking to a dad recently, actually yesterday, and said, what's it going to be like just a few years from now? And some of the predictions right now is that we're going to actually do a circle back in some ways. As in, one of the predictions right now is 5 years from now, we would absolutely scoff at the idea of handing a 13-year-old an iPhone. Yet probably most of our kids have one. The other day we were watching First Man, the movie First Man, and my son holds up this phone. This is more powerful than all those machines that sent us to the moon. I'm like, yeah, he's just running his mouth, saying things I said, but correct. It's terrifying what's in that. Yep. Actually, I call them porn portals. That's my definition of what they are. But this isn't what we want. And here's also the problem. When Steve Jobs came up with the iPhone, it was to solve one problem. You know what it was? It was to pair a phone with what? It wasn't. That was secondary to that. It was never meant to be a computer. Music. That was it. And actually, if Steve Jobs was alive today, he would be appalled at what we have. Him and others have never even let their kids have these devices. It's just interesting. Because it's turned into something else, but it wasn't them. It was actually social media and other groups that are using that as a tool to do one thing, and it's actually to grab your attention. That's the goal. I want your attention. Can I just keep you hooked? This is my porn portal is what I see this as, and I'll show you later kind of even why. And that's what surprises me, how we hand these out like candy and get so excited. Hey, my kid's got a phone. And I show my kids, if you open Safari and you actually type in PORN go, that goes to a website I went to, Protect Young Minds. What shows up? If you were to do that with your phone right now, what shows up? Like, I can't do that. Yes, you can, because your kids are. Stop it. Crazy. Porn. It's a list of words, right? It's not pictures and video yet. It's a list of sites. And all it is there's two links right above it called videos and images, and their world's never the same. Like, that's how close these decisions are, which should absolutely terrify us and make us go, okay, not Like our home, we don't have a single filter on anything in our home. A lot of what I hear, what kind of filter can I use? We don't even use one. But the conversation about pornography in our home is probably every day, at least once a day. My son, who's 13, who's last year, was 12, he said, Dad, my friend here, he's an expert on this, and my other friend's an expert on football. He goes, I think I'm a sex expert. It's like, oh gosh. Well, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Not in the good kind of expert on that. We talk about this stuff. Why? Because we need to go there. We need to talk about this. We need to be someone that's actually safe. But here's what I hear from parents. Oh, my kids know they can come to me with everything and anything. Like, yeah, and they're going to run the other way. I survey college students, and they say, I wish my parents were safe. I talk to the parents, and the parents say, oh, no, well, yeah, they knew I was here. Who needs to initiate? So we go there over and over and over and over. And on Amazon, April 9th, this is my new book. I'm published, yay! It's the only copy in the world right now. It just came in the mail yesterday. And it's called, I Can't Say That, Going Beyond the Talk, Equipping Your Children to Make Choices About Sexuality and Gender from a Biblical Sexual Ethic. And this is about training parents. And then I have a workbook that walks through scripture and everything else, helping a parent. What do I believe? I can't lead my kid if I don't know what I believe. And I would say a lot of us haven't really thought about a lot of this stuff. And it's changed so much. I don't know what I think about some of this. So what we end up doing is we default to kind of whatever others tell us we should care about or focus on. There are teachers and leaders, which means if it's Facebook and groups like that, they want your attention. That's their goal. This is our current reality, or this. They're watching us and they're mimicking us as well. I really struggled with that when I started realizing what my kids see me do is exactly what they're going to start doing. Their relationship with going from screen to screen to screen to screen to screen. And so one of the places this will start will be, what are you going to do different? And we'll talk through some stuff a little bit later too about that. This is what we need more of. There's actually a critical word that is missing. Kids today, and I would say probably a lot of us, we're missing a really critical word. It's called solitude. How many of you listen to podcasts? Okay. Anybody listen to sermons online, things like that too? Great. You listen to a podcast, you listen to a sermon. If you don't spend time in silence following that, you got maybe a few little nuggets. It is the time of silence where we actually reflect back on things and go deeper. But what we've actually been trained, most of us are probably in this trap too, but our kids are as well, and that's we've been trained that if I have even a millisecond of downtime, what do I do? Like I missed the day we actually sat in the waiting room at a doctor's office and talked to your friend. I mean, not friend, your, someone you don't know. We don't do that anymore, right? Actually, you would probably be ridiculed if you did. It's just, that's not a part of our culture. So what do we do with that? We need times of solitude. We need times away. I had a Goldwing recently, and it had speakers. And what's funny is I realized on my Goldwing, I just lost solitude. Because every time I was on it, I'm listening to podcasts. I had a 45-minute commute from Corbin through the back roads to Independence over to West Salem. It's way better than going through downtown. And I needed that solitude, because actually that's where I found it, was on my bike, where there's nothing else. What's yours? What does that look like? What does it look like for our kids? And so what are we going to do to actually find that solitude? Spending time alone. So what happens when you spend time alone? There's new ideas that are forming. You actually start thinking bigger and deeper. And you actually start storing memory and restoring like this sense of kind of calmness. Yet right now, what's happening, we found that increase of anxiety in children skyrocketed about when iPhones and smartphones hit about 50% saturation. And so then they started saying, well, it could be other things like parenting. Like, nope, the parenting had changed earlier. And they said, well, it was Trump. Nope, that was later. And so they have all these explanations, and it's like, none of those were it. It was actually right when phones got in the hands, and that's all they knew of a certain generation. And so then, the college students I work with at Corbin, it's amazing the amount of anxiety and depression, and it's not just a little, it is enormous. And what worries me as a therapist too is they think that absence of anxiety is health. Like, no, sorry. If you don't have anxiety at all, you're not human. So then what's normal? It's kind of like me with my gut issues. I don't know what a normal like tummy ache's like. Because it's like when I have a tummy ache, is it I'm about to go to the ER? Or am I just shouldn't have eaten that? And same kind of thing with anxiety. We don't know where is healthy, where is normal. If any of you struggle with mental health issues, same thing. With whatever your issue is, I would actually dare say we all struggle with mental health issues. I just was teaching about abnormal psych today, and we just finished schizophrenia. That was fun. And it's got such mystery behind it, but I was like, the percentage is huge, and they're really smart people that we completely in our mind tend to dismiss. It's like, what if every one of us saw that you have mental health challenges? It's more like, how steep is the incline for you? I'm the kid my parents didn't think I'd get out of high school. I'm the kid that my dad said to me after my first semester of college, didn't think you could do it. That hurt. So I went and got a PhD, punk. And it's funny because I actually went to college in music and got to my junior year and they said, yeah, you're not graduating because you're not talented enough. That hurt too. Trauma helps, motivate. So I graduated, but I got one elective and it was a counseling class. Oh my gosh, I could help someone. Then I started realizing when I go back in my thinking of growing up in Chile, I watched 2 families leave the mission field because of an affair. And I couldn't understand that. And what's funny is my favorite families to work with is adultery and sexual abuse and trauma. Not weird. Why? Because of hope. Because God's our Redeemer. And He's all about that. And I get to participate, walk alongside and watch Him do something that I know I didn't do, which makes it even better. In your kids' lives, they need someone like that too. They need a champion. They need someone that actually has their best interest at heart, but also is their biggest fan. And when it comes to technology, this is a problem. What are the boundaries? What should the boundaries be? How can I help create solitude when the only solitude really is when they run to the room and slam the door? What do I do about that? This is the other thing we need. Another important word here is leisure. Because we do not know how to have fun without a phone in our hand, basically. Or we got to make sure we record it with pictures. And they've actually found, it's an interesting study, that we used to say, like, hiding behind the camera when you go off and do stuff means you're missing out on the actual thing. They've actually found that's not actually true. That because you took a picture of it and then you can look at the picture, it's linked in the brain to the moment and it actually enhances the memory. Which is kind of cool to see technology be a good thing. I don't want you to even hear from me that technology is something that's this evil thing. It's about stewardship. Same for our sexuality, same for pretty much everything. Money is something we need to steward. We can live like the government, way over budget, or we can actually live within our means. And it's amazing the peace that comes from little things like that. That God created a design for sexuality and a place for it. It's amazing when that's outside of his design, when it all falls apart. I could talk about that one forever, but this leisure piece is critical. What does it look like to have downtime for your kids? For you? The examples that they're watching. This is what's going on. So your phone, and the way it's created, is a slot machine. So it's created to make you come back and come back for some more, and come back for some more, and come back for some more. Have you ever opened your phone to go check your calendar and never made it there? So some of the suggestions from some people are absolutely eliminate all this other stuff and have it be just the tools you need. Great idea. There's actually a guy who created the light phone, and it's literally like this, a little bit smaller than an iPhone, and it does two things. It rings when it's phone and it texts. That's it. And it's basically saying, you can't steward this, so I'm going to create this thing to help you steward this. Just like some of us might have flip phones for a reason. It's smart. Even though you're probably ridiculed for it. Careful with that, because there's a reason for that. It's actually protecting my time. It's frustrating to me when I have friends who aren't on Facebook. As in, I have no idea how their kids are doing, or when they were sick, or when they were going to go to the store. Sorry. There's a lot of friends I've blocked because I don't want to know when they're sitting on the toilet or when they're doing things that, golly, stop posting about all that stuff you're doing. But it's interesting to see that we actually are not as connected as we think we are because of all these things. Yet I know for me, I haven't been to what I would say is my home country, Chile, since 1992. And I'm connected with my friends in Chile over all these years because of Facebook. And we get to, when they make it, they haven't made it in a while, when they make it pretty high up in their FIFA, which I don't like sports, but I can go celebrate and yay, Chile's winning, and oh yay, Chile lost, yay, and move on. And it's like this little dopamine hit. But it's not the same as you and I talking. Or me sitting down with you saying, so how can I help? What's really going on? Or man, that cancer diagnosis, that's impossible. What are we going to do? And if we're not careful, this is it. So the goal of this, and what we're going to head towards today and next week, is I would love for you to be able to create a plan for what you want to do. Right now, I would say everyone else has more say about you and your life and your kids' lives than you do. What if we actually took control of that? What if we said, and here's a big question, what are the things of value that are more valuable than an hour and a half of scrolling and doing this? Or if you're single, you're doing this. Yay, Tinder. I guess that way too. And what would it be like if they were finding that kids are actually spending about 9 hours a day on a device of some kind? A day. And I still have college students blow my mind. They're in class, which someone's paid for at least, or at least they'll pay for eventually. And they get a text message and they jump up, or a phone call, and they run out the door. It's like, I missed that rotary thing. Where the phone was only in the dorm room and you couldn't get me. The amount of couples I've dealt with where it's like, husband, wife, you need to stop texting each other because it's misinterpreted and now you're just angry. That needs to be banned from your existence. And others, it's a great tool to stay connected throughout the day. So one thing can be good for some and it's really bad for others. Or years ago, I had a client and her mom would call her every morning at 7 a.m. and ream her for, why'd you take my grandkid away? You don't love me. And I was like, So we bought her this little device back then. It was called a caller ID. Connected to the phone. When it was mom, she didn't answer. 2 weeks later, her mom stopped calling, and she'd call her only on Saturday. Call her mom back. Boundaries. Are those biblical? Are those healthy? Are those godly? I say, absolutely. And so how do we steward this is really important. This is a scary definition. Addiction is a condition in which a person engages in use of a substance or in a behavior for which the rewarding effects provide a compelling incentive to repeatedly pursue the behavior despite detrimental consequences. And the fact is, our kids are. Now, are video games evil? Actually, they're not. They can be great. There's certain lines that can be crossed there. I can see it in my kids. My oldest, actually, his stomach starts hurting because of the tension. And it's interesting to watch him start making that connection that when I've done too much, the other one gets angry. And whenever that happens, he loses it for sometimes weeks, if not longer. Take one thing that can be a good thing, it can be a really bad thing. Where's the balance there? Or is it none of it? Should we just get rid of all of it? I walked into a house not too long ago who they were so proud, we have no televisions. We are television free. I was like, okay, well, the last hour you've talked about 6 movies you've watched. Where do you watch these movies? Everyone had laptops. And they all literally watch stuff on their own, in their own corners of the house. And I'm like, great. I bet you I can tell you what else is also being watched from your teenage sons for sure. And yeah, it's true. I could be way better off with a big old screen and not those other things. But the heart behind it, I think, was correct. So being able to kind of figure out as a family, and I actually had this, we were doing a Sunday school class, and one of the moms said, don't you be one of those that tells my husband to get rid of all the technology. My husband did that one time, and they lived out in the country, and now I have no access to anything, and baby's at home, and I about went crazy. Like, it's not that. It's stewardship. But it's me driving it versus the actually 20-something-year-olds in Silicon Valley driving it who probably can't get a date anyway. So this works for them. How do we do this? How do you do this? And that's actually not rhetorical now. How do you do this? What have been some things you've done that have actually been helpful and worked?
You actually want us to answer, right?
I do.
Like, take their phones at a certain time at night, 8:30 or something. It goes on the counter.
Okay.
So they can't have it later.
Yeah, phones in a bedroom, bad idea.
Yep.
Really are. It really is. Actually, for us too. Phones in the bedroom are a bad idea. Yeah. So good to have a place that they're charging all together. Buy them a $20 alarm clock from Walmart.
We have had a kind of a graduating system of privileges based on age and maturity. We have an almost 16-year-old, he'll be 16 next month, but we told him he had to wait to have social media until he was 16, but even then it was debatable. That we had to see spiritual, physical, emotional maturity, and that maybe he'll start on Facebook because nobody's on it. So none of his age groups on it. So, but he had to work up to that. So first he didn't have Safari at all or anything on his phone when he first got a phone, and then he, just has had gradually working up.
Nice. Which that requires us to be engaged. Have you ever tried to put the controls or the time controls on Xbox? Which if you have an Xbox and you haven't, shame on you. But I'm really good with technology. It took me like 10 hours to figure this stupid thing out. Imagine most families who would give up long before they would try half that and go just whatever. Which is in a way that a lot of perpetrators are having access to our kids through the text and through that as well. We need those boundaries and some kind of system, if you will. What's annoying is there isn't a system that I can just say, here, do this. As a couple, if one person's not on the same page, it becomes really difficult. It's like if my wife is anti-everything and I'm just like tech everything, we got a problem. That we're going to have to work as a couple to find that decision. I've heard from some, it's like, well, I need to get my kids adept to technology. And again, I've seen the families where there's been absolutely none. There's a little bit of truth to that. But what are we handing them? What are we doing in this? It's amazing why kids are leaving Facebook. Why? Parents and grandparents are on there. Where are they going? Instagram and Snapchat, which should be shut down. Snapchat is terrifying. It's actually one of the bigger ones right now. It's terrifying what it does, or what could be done. And that's what all these are. The amount of kids that are sexting, sending pictures of themselves naked, which is child pornography, by the way, and is on you if it's caught. Had a girl call me at Corbin one time. I'd sent this guy a naked picture of myself. He's bribing me now. What do I do? And then this broke my heart. All of her friends told her, just keep sending him stuff. Don't let him get that out. Just do what he says. And luckily she didn't. She called me. By the end of the evening, she was police report. They found he had 26 accounts, and he didn't put it out there. But even if he had, it was like, that's the least of your concerns there. Staying trapped is terrifying. And silence, not telling us. You not being safe. So you being someone who, well, I'm available, but we haven't had a talk in 6 or 8 weeks, you're not safe. Versus, we talked 2 days ago, we're asking again, so how's it going? Have you accessed anything lately? Is there anything that was weird? We did this with our kids when they were babies. So when they were really little, big with babies, we had lots of babysitters working at colleges for a while. So different babysitter all the time. And it was like, we would get home and we'd ask all 3 kids, touch you in any way? Change your clothes? How'd you do bathroom? We're looking for the anomaly in the way they respond, not that they tell us the truth. We're looking for that pause of, okay, we need to go dig deeper. We're actually not expecting them to tell us.
As opposed to just directly telling your child, if anyone tells you not to tell me something, that's not right. If someone tells you that they can hurt me if you tell them, that's not right. Like, as opposed to doing that.
And that.
Okay.
Yes. It's constant. Actually, what I call it in the book, it's micro conversations. And I'd actually even say it's not even conversations, it's probably most of the time one way, especially when they're teenagers. It's not two-way. It's not about me having this dialogue all the time. I'm planting seeds. Like my kids about dating, my kids and I talked about this when they were 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually at 9, I took Alex on the passport to purity because he was already a little girl crazy. And it was kind of cool. If you've ever done passport to purity, the last thing you do is sign a contract with the dad saying, you have control over when I date. And he didn't want to sign that. He was like, I'm not sure about that. He's 9. Blaze, 2 years later, I took him. He's like, penis, yeah, he was like, so we're having to redo. He's all about just anything that's funny, and every kid's different, every experiment's different. And then the other day, Miley was like, what's going on with mom in there? I was like, oh, she's on her period. And talked through, well, her body released an egg, and it went to fallopian tube. We go the whole thing. Paint the whole picture. It's not what she asked for. But it's planting seeds of, oh, I remember last time he said that, it grossed me out. Now I'm adding to that so they know the truth. This is how it works, it's very normal.
The Good Picture, Bad Pictures is a good book for younger.
Yes, I love Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. Sociologist put it together. It's great. It's on Amazon. We've had that in our kids' books since they were little. And it talks about that there are good pictures, bad pictures. My favorite part is my crazy one, Blaze. He was out in the front yard one day. He was about 6, and he's like going like this. I was like, "What's up, Blaze?" He goes, "Dad, my feeling brain says to go across the street to the park, but my thinking brain says I'll get in trouble." It just summed up everything. Just like not too long after that, my son was at my younger son, middle son, was saying, my daughter asked, "When we become a Christian, why don't we just go to heaven? Why don't we stick around here?" Good question. Yeah, it was Blaze asking that. Without skipping a beat, Alex, the older one, I think he was like 7 at the time, goes, "Because we're supposed to be winning people to Christ." Seminary degree granted. Yes. It's actually that simple in a sense. So what's happening is there's so much out there demanding our attention. Like right now, if your phone is in your pocket and it's vibrated a few times, you're stressed. You are. Because you're like, who is that? Is it something I need to worry about? Is it one of the kids? Is the house burned down? Oh no! Versus if you had no idea, and you'll find out when you go to the car because you left in the car maybe. These little things that actually are like hacks, if you will, of how do us be in control of this and not it be in control of us. And I'm one to speak. I mean, I live on my phone, and I've actually started realizing this recently and kind of going, wow, how do I have a boundary there of where it's not with me all the time? Like, any of you play games on your phone? Delete the games. Pick up knitting. The research behind knitting is incredible, what it does in the brain. The repetitive motion, and what it does, it calms the brain down. And actually, you want to speak of Alzheimer's prevention potential. It's stuff like that. It's part of the leisure. Because you know what leisure actually isn't? It isn't 16 episodes of something. It's not grab some chips and sit down on the couch. But what do we do for leisure? You work hard all day and you come home and it's just, oh. Well, as they've done studies of leisure, they've actually found the people that have found this balance of leisure, it's actually been, they come home and they switch gears. They're actually producing something or doing something constructive. It's fixing something, it's building something, it's making something. It's going outside and throwing the ball. It's doing something physically active. So whether it's outside, whether it's physically active, or it's creating something, it does something different to the brain. And we're healthier, we're happier, and we're whole. Where do we want to just go to a screen? It's training. Kids today, anxiety issues because, I don't have my phone. Turn the car around. Diagnosable issues with phones. There's actually a place in Seattle that actually addresses that. They're a treatment center for like this, I forgot the wording of it, but this over-attachment to technology and this inability to disconnect. Where's the problem from? Yes, it's from the conglomerates of those that are asking for your attention, but really it's on us as parents. If I'm going to steward my kids' lives, it's on me. And then I ask, so what's the goal in your parenting? Besides getting them out of the house. What's the goal? What would be a goal, a really good goal for your children? Do what?
Technological or life goal?
Life goal.
To go to college and there's a goal.
Yep. So go to college. That's a great goal. Get a job, I think I heard you say too. Yes, please get a job and keep it. Yes. What else?
Troy is well-balanced, happy
Well balanced, happy.
individuals, yeah.
Yep.
Godly men.
Yeah, godly. Yep.
That's a given, but I was.
That's a given.
Take care of us when we're old.
Take care of us when we're older.
Ooh, that's a thing.
How about marriage? Get married. That tends to be, and actually Barna did a study on single adults looking at that exact question. What was the goal? If the goal was a lot of some of the things we've said, I would say the bar is shooting pretty low. It's like just, I want them to get out of the house. Flood the basement, by the way, is probably good. Sorry, I can't live there, it's flooded. What he found was, if they are champions for Christ, all this other stuff works itself out. Like, if they are even a champion for anything, ironically, like, I look at college students all the time that nothing excites them. Nothing gets them, there's not a passion, but then I look at some of the parents sometimes and go, oh, okay, that's why. The stats are that 70% of Americans hate their jobs. That's scary. What is it going to be for you in terms of the example you give your kids on technology, work? That's another big one. Actually, what is their work ethic? And if their work ethic is, I got to level so-and-so, good job, I guess? Commitment? Or, hey, let's build a treehouse and the next windstorm will be your test as to whether it worked. And let's do something. Let's build something. I'm thankful my dad made me help under the car and learn how to fix things. And in Georgia, we owned a house from the 1800s, and I restored that from cast iron to knob and tube wiring, tiling, everything. It was therapy. And I realized, wow, this is what it was. And I didn't realize at the time. At work, I'm using my head and thinking and teaching and counseling. And when I switched gears, it was one of the only places I realized I wasn't worried about my clients. I wasn't worried about my students. I was focused on a task, and there was a peace there. What's yours? Some do find it in knitting or things like that, or other cooking. Like, this is going to be critical in terms of what we pass on to our kids that helps them thrive. This helps them. Sports is incredible, but it also can become an idol. Where's that balance? The amount of stories I hear of students where that it was a sport that gave them the confidence. It was a sport that gave them that bump over the hill to be a very different person is great. And then there's this line that gets crossed when it becomes worship. Where's that? I don't know sometimes. Because I'm with you. I'm learning. What does that look like? This technology thing, I think, is taking us more by surprise. So this is something I created to think through this. It's going to be a lot of words. You can just snap a picture if you want to. But it starts with this word vision. You need a vision for what you're doing right now in your own life. Or you're just punching a clock doing a job and you hate it. Versus, and I was humbled by this. So I've always pictured ministry as where I want to be in a job. Until I was on a motorcycle trip with a bunch of guys. And this friend of mine who's a carpenter walks up to someone at the hotel and they see these bunch of bikers pull up. They weren't too excited because bikers are known to be rowdy. And then they find out, oh, it's a bunch of Christians that don't drink, and okay, we're good. And we're next to them. He starts telling her about the gospel, sharing the gospel. And I remember watching him going, I felt like I was on vacation. He's not. Crap. Humbling. And then as I watched him over these 15 years now, it's been, this man has a job that provides, and he is one of the most incredible ministers and fathers and husbands I've ever known. I want to be like him. Who do you have? The hardest thing, we lived in Georgia, this was in Georgia. We moved here 6 years ago. That was the hardest thing to let go of. I had this group of 6 biker guys. We were all tattooless and we drove minivans. And we all had kids at different ages, at different stages of life. The commonality was two things: the motorcycle and the cross, our faith. Most of them, their wives had been sexually abused as kids, and had just now in their 40s shared that. And it was kind of cool to watch them have a complete rebirth of marriages too. It was beautiful, actually. As they go, you make so much more sense now. All these years, I had no idea, because they should. Satan loves secrecy. He loves the dark. What do our phones do? It gives us a great place for secrecy in the dark. There's plenty of apps that cover other apps. There's plenty of ways to hide things. There's plenty of ways around any kind of filter. There is no filter that you can put that if a kid wants to, they can't get around. There was one a number of years ago that worked. It was called sexaddict.com out of Colorado. I don't know if it exists anymore, but what it did was, if you tried to get around it, it released a virus and fried your hard drive. I like that. Because I don't think there is. This is where psychology, behavior modification, has made its way into the church. And we act like if we can just make our kids behave, then they're good. No, it's their heart. I want their heart. I hope you want their heart. So if you're careful, we get into this power struggle over technology. So like you create some rules and you come home and go, bam! Yeah, good luck with that. Versus, depending on the age, it is different at different ages. It's a negotiation and conversation and checking in 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 and checking in. It's forever. As we help them navigate something that even we don't understand. The impact. Can you just sit in silence? Because the statistics say that our kids can't even make it through one class, attention span-wise. And the last sermons are 20 minutes. Kids can't make it through that. What do we do with that? How can we navigate this? If you don't have a vision, we're kind of aimless. The next two are the code and cause. Code is like a code of conduct, but it comes from our home. So you have one from your home, and you've got one for your family. And then to me, the cause is a neat thing. It's like, so what's my bigger picture? This something bigger than myself. I'd say a lot of you have your kids here for a bigger picture. You wouldn't sacrifice and do that if you didn't have this bigger picture, I think. There's something incredible about that. But helping your kids see that, understand that. And so then you've seen stuff like this before, but there's these 4 things that are really critical. That if you look at these through the lens of technology, you could use this through almost anything. What are you doing to actually help them grow and help yourself grow in terms of your health? The impact of devices and them having to be in our hand all the time, it impacts our physical health, our mental health. I personally believe, as a therapist, that most of our mental health and even physical health issues stem from even trauma. But not, when I say the word trauma, a lot of times we think of just abuse. It's way bigger than that. It's way deeper than that. It's wounds that we haven't addressed and wounds that we don't even, sometimes aren't even aware of or don't know where they came from. And they play themselves out physically and emotionally. And it's interesting when you go back and deal with those, all of a sudden the physical health stuff goes away, or the emotional stuff goes away, or changes drastically. It's incredible. That's what led me into working with trauma. It's because the hope is unbelievable. What I want for you is that. Under health, nutrition is critical. Rest is critical. Exercise. They did a study of comparing American women and French women. It's like, why are American women more overweight and French women are not, and they eat all that cheese and wine? That was the question. It was very simple. It was like, they walk like crazy. And we make sure we get the closest parking lot spot to Walmart, take the shortest, we are sedentary. And so then what's been said is the smoking of today is what? Sitting. So then the studies continue. If you sit all day at work and go to the gym for 1 hour, versus this, and the Apple Watch came out with this a couple years ago, that reminder to stand up, should say get off your tush. Love that actually. It reminds me to stand up because I can just get focused and forget. If you just stood up once an hour and walked around for a few minutes, that is better for your body than the hour workout afterwards. As in the sedentary life sitting, like when I think back at how God made us, I don't think a single one of us were meant for a cubicle. We were meant to produce and to make and to create and to do. And one of my biker friends in Georgia, he's an insurance guy, but it's kind of cool because his happy place is on his tractor or on his farm. So he's got this suit on all the time, and then he goes and his place where he loves to be is on his tractor. It's like, we all kind of need that. I love it when I can tear an engine apart. I love that. I was sick years ago, and I just took my bike engine all the way down to the heads, and it was cool. I put it back together, and I only had a few things left over. And it ran. I was kind of proud. And that's the thing is, if you compare that to the skill of, I made it to the end of Call of Duty, score. Or can you fill in the blank? What would be your thing you would want your child to be able to do? Meditation studies spiritual disciplines. The one we talked about earlier, solitude, that's a spiritual discipline. And what's interesting is that word solitude is coming from Cal Newport in a book called Digital Minimalism. Not a Christian at all, not from any kind of Christian worldview. It's got evolutionary stuff all through the book. Yeah, it's kind of cool. He landed on a word and I'm going, yes, solitude. I had a counselor in seminary actually tell me, Corey, I challenge you to be alone in silence for 24 hours. Never could do it. Had to have music on everywhere. Had to have something on all the time. And it's funny, it took years to realize, he's right. And then the biggest thing there was, how can I expect someone to marry me if I'm not okay with me? I had a lot of growing to do. And my wife reminds me I still do. Don't we all, right? Relationships, these take investment. They've got to have priority. We need community. We're made for community. The end part of my book is that all this comes down to who you put around you matters. We do Boy Scouts. Never in a million years thought I would do something like Boy Scouts. I never did this as a kid, but my dad's an Eagle Scout, but we were overseas in Chile, and so I didn't have access to this. And we created a group at Salem First Baptist. It's a Christian group, and we have 22 boys right now. It's amazing. Camp outs once a month. And I get to spend time with, last time I had 5, the time before that I had 9 dads. Around a campfire, no cell service, which is awesome, by the way. With these men that love God. And over these years, I've been here doing this, there are 6 years, these are some of my best friends. The intentionality here is, and I've told my kids this very overtly, I want you to know that any of those dads are someone that you can go to if you don't want to come to me. Oh, and by the way, you're going to be jealous when you want to talk to me maybe, but I'm talking to one of their sons. Because you're creating a system, a community, which should be the body of Christ. And it's smaller than a church. This is critical. We all need it. But if you look at sociologists, it actually shows memberships decline. A great sociologist book called Bowling Alone looks at like bowling and things like that. All these membership group things are just declining and declining and declining. Yet we need community. It takes investment. It's got to be a priority, and it's not long distance. It isn't through cameras. It's got to be face to face. It changes the neurobiology and the depth. One of the other problems we're seeing is if you're texting all day, and I'd say this may be different with a husband and wife, If you think of a family member that you're texting a lot and communication a lot, and then you see each other, is it a higher or lower priority or value than if you haven't communicated in a while and then you see each other? What do you think? If we communicated through Facebook and other places through a few weeks and then we finally see each other, is it higher or lower value? It's lower. They've actually found that sometimes that break increases the value. I look forward to seeing you more. There's something about this. And the irony is it almost always spins back around to the analog, to the non-digital. All the publishers are going digital for books, for textbooks. All the data shows we learn better with print. And it's funny to watch them do that because it's so driven by money. I mean, some of my textbooks are like $280. It's ridiculous. And digital is, for them, practically free. They make way more, and they actually do. They cost less to the student, which I like, but then it's they're not learning as much, they're not retaining as much. Work, lifelong learner, their work ethic, and there's balance. This is so critical. Who are they? Who are you when it comes to the example? I'm thankful my dad was someone who actually looked forward to work. He looked forward to going to work. There was never, oh, it's one day. He loved his work. What about you? And then what are you instilling in them? Is there a time and a place where they made a commitment to maybe a sport or maybe some other thing and you kind of have them fulfill that commitment because they made that? Yeah, I think there is. Is there a time for you to say, you know what? The wisest thing right now is maybe quitting. Yes. I talked to a college student the other day saying that he was dropping out of school. He's like, I feel like a complete failure. I was like, no. You're making a conscious decision with consultation with people that love you. And the wisest thing for you to do right now is to drop out. This isn't failure, this is priorities. And what's funny is he didn't know, his wife was pregnant, he didn't know that his wife was going to deliver really early and face a whole different challenge. And so he was there, he was available for his wife during that time. We don't know, it gets complicated. So this is kind of an example of what I would want for you to build and to flesh out for yourself. My wife and I, as we think through this, we have our list of priorities and we are in constant conversation about what needs to be changed and tweaked. It isn't as simple as, all right, got it. Because for now, mine are 13, 10, and 8. And last I checked, it keeps going up. Like, it's funny, the parent that is shocked when they have a teenager. Like, you had a 13-year notice? There's no reason to panic. And I love what an author, I can't remember the author's name right now, but he wrote a book called The Age of Opportunity. It's like adolescence isn't this time to hang on for dear life. And yes, it is for some, and sometimes it is. But it's not supposed to be. It's this time to see flourishing. And responsibility should go steep, not you're 17, 18, 19, then they go up. It needs to be this, the stewardship level for them needs to go up, which then involves maybe a phone, involves technology. But how are we going to do this in a way that it's not in control? They are. And a lot of it's going to be through us. So actually what I want us to do right now, I want us to actually kind of break into small groups for a few minutes. Because here's what I want you to do. Now the cards you have on there, I'd love for you to put your email address and all that stuff for me on one side. The other side, I'd love you to write questions for next time. What are some questions that you have? What are some struggles that you have that we could address and go deeper into next time? Well, what I want you to do right now is to actually be able to hear from at least 2 or 3 other people. What have you done? What has worked for you? What are some ideas you have? Maybe you haven't even implemented, but you're thinking about trying to do. What are some struggles here? Like, I need to be able to access my kid, and so that's why I need them to have a phone. That's a very legitimate need at times. What do you do with that? What are some other alternatives? And so I want you to turn around and spend a few minutes doing that, and then I'll kind of call us back here in just maybe about 10 minutes. Okay? About 2 more minutes. That's what's doing that.
And then I swallowed this thing.
All right, so let's come back. What is something that someone else said that stood out to you that was a good idea?
No phones at night.
Yeah, no phones at night. We need to hear it too, though. Yes.
Setting goals.
Setting goals.
Very different blocks.
And what?
Setting goals for hitting these blocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How about goals for your phone about, timing out yourself as an adult? Like, I'm not going to use it for an hour. Start out with something where you can learn to. I don't use it all the time, so I'm not like as addicted as I used to be. But yeah.
And we need to actually start setting some boundaries.
Yeah, I think your kids see that if you're just constantly on your phone and that's the only thing you can do, then they're gonna obviously.
Have you seen the new feature in an iPhone where it shows you how many hours you've been on what?
Oh no.
What I challenge you to do, if you haven't looked at that, write down a number, then look at it. What's your guess? And then you can cry after of how many hours you wasted. It's been fun to compare mine to my son's, who has all these locks, and my wife has it all locked down on him, but still, it's interesting to watch. And for me to go, ooh, where did I do that? Where did that time go? What else? So let's see what else said.
Table for dinner.
Yes.
But.
Yeah, we do that.
It sounds silly, like it's no brainer.
Like yeah. It's important to establish that, sometimes very overtly. Yes, no phones on the table during dinner.
Yep.
If it rings,
We just have dinner and anxiety.
yes. Yes.
Maybe you should silence them.
Yeah. And silence even doesn't work if they vibrate too. It's
Oh,
like,
that's true.
gosh.
You got to put them in another room.
Gotta do not disturb. Yeah.
I like what Al said, although I have no idea how to do this. He said that when his kids were younger, if his son went onto an inappropriate website, he would get a notification. But he also did the reverse and had his son get notified if he went on an inappropriate website. So having the same respect for both parties.
Nice. Yep.
Well,
I did that with my wife, called Covenant Eyes. I was a 5 every week, which is the highest. It's like, Kelly, click on the links. Like the nature of what I do for where I go on websites. They weren't bad. Click on them, they're fine. No, I can't. So I stopped sending her the emails. And sometimes spouses should not be your accountability person. That's really dangerous at times. And I'd say other couples, it works really well. So you need to talk about this. But when your son, when your own kid, that can be really powerful. Because what do they need? They need modeling. And they need modeling even actually of probably more important than success and failures and asking for forgiveness. They need that from us.
I also think it's accountability though too, because
Yes.
if you're going to expect your child to do something, you might all better step up and do it the same
Yep.
thing yourself.
Yep. Love it.
So we have a couple of girls, and we have a son too. And I'm using the mic because it's right. I don't want to ruin my voice. So depression, and looking at Facebook, Instagram, and looking at all these perfect people and perfect lives. So my daughter, who's 21, about a year ago came to us and said, you know what, I just feel depressed all the time. So I'm going to try an experiment. So she deleted Instagram and Facebook. And all of a sudden, life became a little bit rosier for her. So this is something that we encouraged. Why don't you try an experiment? If kids see themselves, the effect that it has on them, that's much more powerful than me always telling them the effect that it's going to have. So we encouraged that and then had those conversations with her. How are you feeling about it now? Man, I feel great. I'm not worried about my looks as much. I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about that. So about every month or two, she'll reactivate them. Just go check her friends' Instagram, and I'll ask her that night, how do you feel? You know, I don't feel too good, Dad. It's interesting. So that's something that she learned. And because I have to be honest, I look back, hear you talking tonight, and I go, man, I blew it in so many areas, muddling through this technology. So I really do, and my kids are older now, they're in their early 20s, but still having those conversations. This is their world. We've got to get in the middle of it. We've got to do this. And so thank you for a lot of what you've said, and I really appreciate it.
You know why Facebook put in that notification? Like the amount of time? Their stakeholders started pressing last year, saying, and it was a key demographic, teenage girls were losing them because of the comparison factor. What are we losing guys through? It's actually video games. And it's not just video games, it's the obsessive. It's the hours and hours I'm wearing a diaper kind of stuff. I'm serious, it's crazy. And actually, Zimbardo, a researcher from way back when, his recent research has been on the demise of guys, and he found 3 key areas why men are failing to grow up, boys are failing to grow up. It's pornography, excessive video game play, and you guess this third one? Flood the basement. It's dads. Absent dads. And there are a lot of present dads who are absent. Like right now, I'm absent to my kids. I'm not home. And that can get too much. We went skiing last Thursday. Okay. Camping the weekend before. Absent dads. So you can be married and together, but it's not just the divorced and gone or not in the picture. It's the present, they hate their life. Girls and guys that look at their dad even and go, I wouldn't marry someone like him, and I wouldn't want to be like him. And the irony is the research shows, and this may offend half of you, that we are so focused on moms, yet the role of the father is probably one of the most indicators of success or failure for a kid, boy and girl. It's terrifying. So we have a lot of single parents that are part of our Boy Scout group. And one of the things I tell them is like, guess what? You're not invited. you can't go on the campouts. And they're like, thank you. And what's funny is some of them are actually more avid campers than we are. It's like we don't go to campouts for camping. We go out for way bigger than all the skills they're learning. Because it's basically home ec outside. That's what it is. It's the relationships being built, and these fathers pouring into not only their sons, it's other sons. I actually tell the new dads, you need to stay away from your kid. Let me deal with them. And so my middle son just joined 2 weeks ago from Cub Scouts. His first camp out last 2 weekends ago, and he's a little yahoo. He likes to be funny. And so my fellow assistant scoutmaster's like, I'm the scoutmaster. He's like, yeah, he's fun. You just, every time he comes to me and he says, Dad, it's like, no. So even he corrects him, no, it's scoutmaster. As in he's got to go to someone else. This is that community. We need that. And our girls are impacted by that comparison factor. Terrifyingly so. I'll get into that later. But any last things that you found, like someone else said, is a good idea? Because we're going to go further later. But let me give you one last thing. So, FYI, my book is actually on Amazon right now. The Kindle's free for the book. If you want to download it, that's great. The physical one will be available April 9th, which is so exciting. I can't believe it. Because I wrote it in 8 weeks, but it was like 20 weeks of my wife editing it because she said I wrote like Yoda. Marry well, people. Help your kids marry well. Here's my proposal. A philosophy of technology use in which you focus your online time on a small number of carefully selected and optimized activities that strongly support things you value, and then happily miss out on everything else. What if? And we use this, is this the best way to use technology to support this value? The only way we're going to make decisions not to do things is when there's a reason. Our default is actually kind of the path of least resistance. It's easier to sit down and binge now. My kids don't understand that the next episode used to come out 7 days from now. Because now it just automatically goes to the next one. It's like we're supposed to watch 20 in a row. That's how it's, no. And so being able to give that delayed gratification and give that, we need to have a reason why outside is really important, and activity is important, and creation is important, and relationships are critical. Forced my kid the other day, like, just call some friends and let's meet at the Rock Box. And had a great time. What are you going to do to get them? And it's very subtle. I love your example of they have to see why. It's got to connect to them. If it's just a mandate, you don't parent your 15, 16, 17-year-old like they're 6. It changes. So it's a different kind of parenting. I actually say our parenting stops around 10 or 11 as we know it. At that point, you kind of see the monster you created. You start seeing who they become, and you help nurture that and guide that and mold that. But at that point, their personality is set. Most things are set, and the only thing that changes is trauma. Careful what you pray for. Because sometimes that drug abuse or that other problem is because of what God's doing in their life. So we want to set them up to succeed, to thrive. And a lot of it, really sad to say, comes back to our use and ethos of technology and what we're kind of giving them. So we'll stop here tonight, and next week.
Yeah, so encourage you to come back next Thursday for part 2. If you have a friend that you'd like to bring, someone in your neighborhood or church, we have open pews. So feel free to do that. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Corey. Appreciate it.